definitely that's a real thing. You know, there's stigma on shore around mental health, but there's even more stigma if you tell someone that you were on a motor yacht, you know, a big shiny motor yacht earning six figures, and you were unwell mentally. They're just like, well, you really are crazy, you know.
Mm,
If you got unwell in that situation, and then you're trying to explain how busy it is and the pressure and the travel, and they don't get it. They just don't get it.
yeah. And that goes
It's
back to having an understanding. And that's what the prisoners used to tell me too. They're like, have you ever done drugs? What would you know? You don't understand, you know?
mm,
So it's,
yeah,
I can, I can understand, I can have empathy, but to really identify what that would be like,
mm,
to be realistic and honest, like I can't to a certain extent.
mm, yeah,
I
yeah,
don't know what it's like to suffer from an addiction because I haven't been
yeah,
there, but I've got all the theory and knowledge of what that may be like and how
yeah,
to, and then also how to provide the strategies. Like I'm just here to provide support in managing it because that's what I'm trained in. But
yeah,
to identify exactly with that situation, no.
yeah.
Yeah.
Hmm.
It's
Yeah, and that's where you're in the perfect position in yachting to have, you
interesting.
know, to kind of understand what everybody's going through.
Mm. And I
And
know
I
like,
think,
I also got sick on board, and I might have mentioned it to you last time, but I was in Portofino and it was 100% psychological. And the doctor, no one could speak English. So it was
mm,
so hard to tell them what the issue was. And then I was
yeah,
just given medication that wasn't actually getting to the root cause of the issue.
uh
And yeah, it's just very, very hard for crew
yeah,
in
hmm,
terms of who do you go to. And this
yeah,
and mental, like it can be one event and it can affect you for the rest of your life. This is the
yeah, definitely,
thing.
without a
Mm,
doubt, and it can be seemingly a simple event, like you said, a case of bullying. Somebody says something to someone, or you know, it's because I think it's such a high pressure cooker environment. You
mm,
know, it's just tough. But I
mm,
think captains, I don't know how you would ever get kind of through to captains, but obviously captains is one of the most lonely positions on the boat.
mm,
um it's okay for captains who have maybe wives at home, they can vent in the evening, you know, phone home or whatever. But I know for sure captains need support, definitely.
mm.
But would they ever admit that? I'm not sure. I know the boats that I worked on Arctic, for example, the two captains were good friends. They supported each other.
Mm.
So they would have spoken every day. But for smaller boats where there's only one captain, um, yeah, it's really tricky.
Mm. I know
And
speaking to a captain, he just wanted to be called by his first name. And I guess I gather it's because he wants to feel part of the team because the captains can
yeah,
be quite removed from the team.
yeah, yeah,
And the crew form a family unit as such. And
yeah,
then they're not like in the inner circle. So that can be isolating in
yeah,
itself.
yeah, yeah.
Mm.
And it's tricky that because you can try to be part of the team, but will you ever be part of the team, or does the team really want you to be there? You know, the crew don't really want the captain there when they're out on Saturday night. You know, yeah, it's nice to go out for one or two drinks, but they don't want the captain there at like 2 in the morning, because
Yeah.
that's just more kind of claustrophobic again. You know,
Mm.
so it's tricky kind of finding that balance. But yeah, captains can be very lonely for that
True.
reason,
And it's like,
especially if they've
how
come
do
up through the
they?
ranks and they're still maybe nostalgic about the times that they had with crew in their younger days in the
Yeah.
industry,
Yeah.
and they're maybe still trying to recreate that. But that can be quite cringeworthy as well. I'm sure you maybe experienced that, captains who are out till 2 or 3 in the morning with the crew, trying to be part of the crew, but it's a bit
Mm.
like,
Mm.
go home kind of thing.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. But I hear what you're saying because at the same time, as human, we're social beings, and we need to feel that we're belonging to a community, and
Yeah,
also to have that say more intimate relationships, not obviously sexual, but just more
yeah,
personal.
yeah,
And if you don't have that, you're more susceptible to getting a mental health issue.
Definitely. And
Mm.
it's not so bad for, captains that are tied to the dock in the south of France or whatever, because there's quite a good community ashore of other captains or whatever. But if you're on a smaller vessel that's going remote areas or travels a bit, it's a
Mm.
very lonely place to be.
Mm.
But again, they don't want to show their weakness. They wouldn't contact the management company and say, look, I need a coach or a counselor,
Yeah.
you know, yet.
Mm.
Um,
And I
yet.
wonder if the yacht management companies could be more supportive in financing that and saying, look, we'll pay for 10 sessions a year and just use it when you need to. But
Yeah.
then at the same time, they don't want people to know. So it's a confidentiality thing.
Yeah.
If you've got that stigma hanging over your head, you don't want people to know that you're actually reaching out for support.
Yeah. No.
But then it can come down to reframing it and not using the word counseling, but going for coaching.
Yeah.
So that's
Yeah.
another option.
And even I mentioned my sister, she works in the corporate world. So even maybe, I don't know, 8 years ago in the corporate world, having an executive coach was seen as a weakness.
Mm.
Whereas now that is completely flipped on its head. Having an executive coach is like a badge of honor, because the people that are really well, thought of and
Mm.
really well looked after have an executive coach paid for by the company because that's part of the support they offer them. So it's actually quite people now would be having lunch and say, "Oh, I've got to go. I've got an appointment with my coach."
Yeah. Yeah. It shows you the power of branding.
Yeah, yeah.
Mm.
So how to get that changed in yachting, I've no idea.
Mm.
Um,
It's interesting. I've
I,
had a few captains as clients and
uh-huh.
chief stews, and they reach out for coaching because they are self-aware and they want to
Mm,
become better leaders.
but they
And
have to pay for it
it,
themselves, I guess.
they're paying it for themselves. There's a few chief stews that have said the captains were quite excited that they were doing coaching and they were
Yeah.
happy to pay for further sessions. But
Uh-huh.
in terms of the captains, I believe they were asking for receipts. So I'm not too sure, but I believe that they were paying it for themselves.
Yeah.
And I'm so inspired by that because they're so passionate about their crew and
Yeah.
they want team morale to be up and crew engagement.
Yeah.
It also makes their experience on board so much better. And the one
Definitely.
captain said
Mm,
that when he was doing the coaching, that the boat was in the show and captains were walking past or were noticing the crew coming off and on the boat, and maybe they were seeing them at the bars around Monaco, and a few of them approached the captain and said, wow, you've got a really good crew, don't you? They all seem so happy. Like it's almost
uh-huh.
shocking that a whole
Yeah.
entire
Yeah.
team is actually happy. But he
Yeah.
put
Yeah.
so much work into making that happen. So I wrote workshops and then he delivered the workshops. And
Brilliant.
the stews like went out and bought a sunflower and named the sunflower and put it on the bridge. And yeah, everything just changed. And they were trying to
Uh-huh.
sell the boat and the owner went on board and he's like, oh, it feels different because energy is
Brilliant. Yeah.
palpable. Like you
Yeah.
can feel an
Totally.
atmosphere on board. Mm.
Totally. Without a doubt. Without a doubt.